Chapter 1. Colliding Worlds. The first time Finch's shimmering station pass beeped in rejection, he attributed it to the precinct he'd been assigned. Everyone in Shanghai and the surrounding metroscape knew what kind of shape Precinct 117 was in. The recent influx of those crazy nanotech sentries from the WCC helped, and there weren't many fringe extremists against them this side of China. But Finch was getting ahead of himself. He needed to get inside first. He swiped the card 3 more times before he thought it might be another test. Between his new partner and his rumpled old supervisor, the test had hardly ended with his graduation from the academy. The door beeped back the red shutout light every time. Just my luck, Finch muttered, seemingly to himself. The wall-mounted speaker crackled alive. "If you're going to fall back on luck, you might as well leave your badge on the step, rookie," grumbled the doorman. So he was listening. "Door lock still busted? Or is it my card?" said Finch. "Probably both," laughed the doorman. The door swung out with a push from another rookie from his office. It was the young man only a few years Finch's senior, who held the desk directly across from his. Of all the people Finch had met in his 3 weeks on the force, Greg was the only one he could form a remote connection to. "We've got bots that can be a table or a gun, but no functioning door." Greg shook his head while he let Finch in. He sucked down a deep breath of cool, pure air. Finch was still adjusting to the transition from the overcrowded, humid haze of Shanghai's regular atmosphere to the filtered inside of a WCC support precinct. "So why didn't you send your squire to let me in?" Finch raised a sandy blonde eyebrow. "New ordinance. Cost the precinct millions more to pay for the squires than it does for us. They don't lift a shape-shifting finger unless it's something we can't do ourselves," said Greg. They headed through the glum halls to their office. The shimmering teal track of tube lights overhead made everything visible, but in such a drab light it made the precinct even more depressing than it was by default. Sure, some precincts in India and Afghanistan saw action, but 117 was a relic of times before the WCC, before the SkyLine changed everything, a time when law needed enforcing, when the life of the planet wasn't at stake. "Well, we're on squires. How are things with your new partner?" asked Greg while they paced. Finch took a glance down every crossing hallway before he started. "Strange. Really strange. I mean, I knew it'd be weird with his, what's it called? A personality matrix?" fumbled Finch. "Yeah, I could hardly believe it when I heard. A drone with a heart of gold," said Greg. "Don't know about gold, but he does apologize for everything. And he's a little clingy, always asking me if I'm all right or if I need anything. Wouldn't be surprised if it was him driving the precinct bills through the roof," Finch marveled. That was around the time Finch and Greg made it to their office. A grid of cubicles adorned with glowing instant coffee canisters and splayed manila files made it more their homes than their tiny, stacked one-room apartments. "Well, the software is in beta. Poor guy's just a kink to be worked out," said Greg. He sunk into his worn swivel office chair. "Didn't they give him a human-sounding model number too? No wonder the thing's confused." Greg spun in his chair to face his desk just before a digitized voice piped up behind Finch's head. "Mr. Finch." Davos, too loud," Finch gasped. He wheeled to face a black onyx oval, the faceless face of his partner. Finch could see the whites of his own eyes in the reflective surface inches away. "Sorry, Mr. Finch. I am still adjusting my proximity settings for appropriate socialization," said Davos. The jet-black, seamless, man-shaped machine took one small step back. "How about one more step? Let's say 2 feet between us, at all times," said Finch. "Yes, very good, Mr. Finch," said Davos, the glossy black of his face lighting lavender when he spoke. Purely for human convenience, the chief had explained. Squires with the personality matrix were assigned a gender. According to this odd rule, Davos was officially a he. First, it made Finch laugh when it was so common for people to change genders as they grew into themselves. Then the less humorous idea of rights for thinking machines poked into his mind. "And drop the Mr. too. Just Finch is fine." He forced himself not to mumble for the 5th time. "Yes, of course, Mr. Finch," said Davos. Finch groaned. Greg's chuckles, while his own squire sat silently beside him, didn't help. His shapeless, metallic tentacle reformed itself before Finch's eyes into a perfect imitation of a human hand. He sighed and took Davos's glossy new fingers for a firm shake. Davos, I appreciate the gesture, but handshakes are typically at the beginning or end of a conversation, and maybe a little less abrupt. You're going to scare someone if you do that outside the precinct, Finch told him. A long breath escaped him when he remembered he hadn't even clocked in yet. Finch's brother was off in a lab somewhere developing faster fusion jets for magnet trains. And here he was, parenting a gigantic, robotic man-baby in the slums. Just my luck, he thought, and this time he meant it. Understood, Mr. Finch. Apologies, but my analytics show that after 3 weeks as partners, we should be more closely bonded. I was only extending a friendly gesture, said Davos. Then the light on his face glowed blue. Sure, there was an AI in there, running the whole nanotech show. Sure, Finch knew some immeasurably complex code was calculating the closest thing a computer could simulate to emotion. Still, he couldn't have been prepared for the words that came through that blue glow. Why do you not like me, Mr. Finch? Finch could only stare into the radiating metal in search of the mind inside. Davos, it's not that I don't like you, said Finch. How best to say this to so new a psyche, natural or artificial? Humans don't run on analytics, and you can't force a bond. It just has to happen. It's part of being partners. I see. Davos's face glow returned to its neutral lavender. Then the door from the main entrance slammed shut, marking the chief's entrance. Every officer, human and squire, straightened up before his procession. At ease, you beanbags, the chief grumbled. Office meeting in 5. Time for your new route assignments. On his way, he took a deep glowing puff from his cigarano. The health benefits of vaporized sage and chamomile filled the chief's chest with each deep breath. He disappeared behind the door to his office with no further word. The office resumed its previous casual shuffle. Think his blood vessels would burst if we hid that thing from him? Whispered Greg about the cigarano. Finch turned to answer, but stopped when he noticed a color he'd never seen before. On Davos's face. His light smoldered yellow. Davos? Do you not hear that? Murmured Davos. Hear what? Said Finch. Greg turned full around to face both man and squire. Do robots understand humor? Is that a joke? Said Greg. No joke. It's... Davos's yellow tint deepened, brightened to show his concentration on something unheard to the others. Do what? You want me to... No, I said no. Greg's hand flew for his pistol too late. The sharpened spearhead arm of his own partner pierced him through. The squire pinned his gushing back to his desk. When Greg slumped away, it turned its light, now crimson metal face on Finch, too shaken to move. Its arm reconfigured into an open-ended barrel, swimming with prismatic light. Davos's body opened as a black steel blanket around his partner just in time. The squire fired 3 shining lasers before it moved on to another officer, at another desk. Remain quiet and still, Mr. Finch, said Davos's voice, inside the black dome of his reformed mass. His purple face light glowed in the dark. All right, Finch whimpered. His partner's body kept him safe from the fusion rays, but only muffled the screams. He could still hear every last one of his fellow officers blown away, skewered and incinerated by their squire partners. In the lavender dark, Finch felt every word about the bond between partners, like a knot in his stomach. He felt rather differently about his luck, too.